today. So
Oh, good. We're now live, Dr. Fuller.
excellent. I always enjoy that part of the day. How are you, sir?
I'm good. This lighting and this shirt, I look like a
You
tech
really do. I
entrepreneur
feel like you should have maybe a pipe. It's like really the only accessory you're missing.
or like Steve Jobs kind of,
Exactly.
or what was that chick's name? Elizabeth Holmes.
Oh God. If you had more of a turtleneck, I'd say you were that guy. This is the part on Sprockets where we dance from the old
Yes.
Saturday Night Live.
I love that. Mike
back in the
Myers,
day,
freaking hilarious. Und Sprockets.
Und Sprockets. Yeah.
I tell you what, Elizabeth Holmes to me is kind of a litmus test. If you couldn't tell if she was an unhinged leftist psychopath, then you're not paying attention.
But you repeat yourself.
It's like she's first, the youngest female billionaire, the fastest to ever reach $1 billion, and then she was scamming everybody. She was, and now she's in prison right now, so that's where she needs to be.
Yeah.
Will Parker says, coin number 800, one more week till HREC, high risk environment course. Yeah, I'll be picking up Will this Saturday. Dr. Fuller will be coming in right behind him, I think.
Yeah, I'm coming in. The plan is Sunday, but I'm in Raleigh that weekend and won't be back until Sunday, maybe evening. So I'm not sure if I'll get on the road Sunday night because I got to drive home from Raleigh, which is about 3 hours, and then get on the road to you. And as you know, I-40 between you and I is still a mess from the hurricane last year. So I'm a little hesitant to drive it at night, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's rough, man. Alan Kelly said, boy, we're going to talk about Virginia this morning, sir. The Commonwealth is in some serious trouble. He says, good morning, gents. Coin number 1571 from triple occupied Virginia. It is a mess. I've got plenty of slides on that, so buckle up for that one, guys. But, we were talking about, can I share with you kind of not really a dream, but just something that woke me up out of my sleep. I think it was Saturday night.
I think you're retired properly for just such a story.
I need a pipe, don't I? My grandfather's pipe is laying out here somewhere. But seriously, have you ever seen the Daniel Day-Lewis movie, In the Name of the Father?
Oh God, that was 20 years ago.
1993, brother.
Yeah, 30 years ago. I mean, when I saw it, yeah. So long time ago.
I would encourage I love that movie. It's a fantastic movie. And probably I watched it again, I don't know, a couple of years ago. And it just erupted into my head Saturday night like, oh, God, this is it. So let me explain what I mean by that. And Dr. Fuller, please offer commentary as appropriate. So this is a true story, by the way. Jerry Conlon, who's played by Daniel Day-Lewis, he's a petty thief in Belfast, Northern Ireland during the Troubles. I think this is like 1973, 74. And the IRA has given him multiple warnings like, look, every time you steal, you're drawing attention on us, because they're in a very predominantly Catholic IRA-controlled neighborhood. We've told you don't be being a scumbag thief because every time you do, the Brits come in here kicking in doors and they're finding our weapons caches. And so they're going to kneecap him finally, like, hey, take your trousers down. Just going to get, this is the third and final time. And the next time I come, I'm going to shoot you in the face. So the father says, begs for his son not to be shot. And I'm going to get him out of here. I'm going to send him to London. He won't be your problem anymore. He gives him some money. Mom wraps up. I love this as a very Northern Irish thing. Mom wraps up a big thing of sausages, puts it in his carry-on, and they put him on a boat to London. All right. And Dad's like, all right, he's going to get a job. He's got some family over there that are Protestant. He's going to have a future. Well, the problem is you take one scumbag thief, druggie, and move him to London, Dr. Fuller, and guess what? You think he changes his stripes?
He finds validation.
Correctamundo. So he doesn't want to live with his aunt because she has rules and, she's going to be on him to get a job. So he lands in a squatter's flat hippie commune. So these hippies have overtaken an abandoned house. It's a beautiful house, multi-storied brownstone. And do you think that these leftist hippies go in there and like, we're all going to work for the common good? We're going to repair it? No. Here's what they do, Dr. Fuller. They burn all the furniture. When they're done burning the furniture to stay warm, and during the day, they're petty thieves and petty drug dealers to get a little bit of money to get some food. They start ripping up the floorboards to burn the floor to stay warm. And I love the visual because they're inside this brownstone. You can look up and the floors have all been burnt. And my point of saying all this is what leftism does. They don't build anything. To stay warm, they're fine destroying what somebody else made. And again, because a lot of these people that were squatting there were people that were fleeing the troubles that they had created in Northern Ireland and bringing this crap over to England. And they're not adding value to society. And guess what would happen when they burned everything inside that place? They'd probably torch the whole thing and then move to another one and destroy it too. And when you ratchet these numbers up from a few hippies in one commune to tens of thousands of people, potentially millions of people, whether it's in London or Germany or here, guess what happens? That the whole place gets destroyed because they don't have a stake in what was built. And it was just like, I woke up in the middle of the night thinking about this movie I hadn't seen in years going, oh my God, they're fleeing sectarian violence, right? Like Syria, wherever, just Northern Ireland happens to be they come over there and they just freaking do the same crap.
Yeah. And I noticed that you never see anybody fleeing a capitalist country heading to a socialist country.
Hell no.
You don't see people building rafts out of trash to sail across,
Besides Oswald, who was a CIA operative, I'm sure.
Right. You don't see them in groups. I mean, you don't see people putting their families and their small children on a raft to Cuba. When I was at Gitmo, we had a fence line shooting, and a guy had come down from Havana, which, if you're not super familiar with the geography of the island of Cuba, Havana is in the far northwest, and Gitmo's in the far southeast. So basically, he crossed the entire island and was eventually caught making a run for the fence line by the Cuban infantry battalions that surround the installation, and made it to the sand line, which is a road that they drag every day, so you can see footprints if anybody makes it across to the fence line, and then machine gunned him trying to get over the fence. So for whatever reason, we ended up out there the next day, myself and another agent, and we had no dog in the fight. That was purely a military issue, but we ended up interviewing the Marine guards who had to stand there and watch it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I note that you don't hear about stories like that going the other way. People aren't dying to get into, to get out of Greece and get into Syria, for example. They're not dying to get out of these socialist utopias, or to get into these socialist utopias. And I'm often wondering why we create a problem, flee the problem, create the problem all over again.
Yeah.
And you see it, writ large with countries. We see it here in the United States with states. I mean, as soon as people find out I'm a Californian living in South Carolina, the first thing you didn't bring your politics with you, did you? Actually, I did, but I didn't bring the California politics with me.
Mm-hmm.
But you see that over and over and over. And I think it just comes down to lack of industry. I mean, people are just not industrious. To your point in the movie, fixing up that house would have taken work.
Oh, yeah.
That house, maintaining your house, for example. Your house is how old? 100 and some years?
Actually, the old house burned and another one's built on its ashes back in 2002. So it's not that old, but it looks old because it's, designed to look old.
Right. But 14-acre farm takes work to maintain. Owning a home takes work to maintain. And some people just won't do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's also where you get the people that are dying to have these planned cities, these 15-minute cities, where somebody else owns the land. Somebody else owns the property. Somebody else has the headache. I just pay them money.
Right.
I don't have to do anything. And then I'm going to figure out a way to maybe fix the rents, or elect a socialist who will tell me that I get free rent. That's even better. And I can just.
Yeah. Or rent controlled housing, that somebody owns that house. To mandate you cannot raise the rents. Like, this isn't free market. This is communism, socialism.
So what do you do if you're a property owner and they tell you, yeah, you got to freeze your rents? Well, all my costs are going up, and my profit margin, which was already fairly narrow, is shrinking. So what do? Take it off.
Well, that's just it. Commercial real estate in New York right now is,
Yeah.
it's going to be the Wild West for a while as people figure out what the hell is going to happen here.
Yeah, you take it off the rental market and you turn it into corporate housing. I mean, or you turn it into offices, or you just sell it and get the hell out.
Yeah.
Take your money and go to Miami.
Which would be my move. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit, the tyranny of the majority and what can happen when these things kind of run amok. But thank you to the 16 folks watching us live. Dr. Fuller, let's welcome some folks on. We have, of course, Mark Hamilton up there in Ontario, Canada. Ted out there in Mississippi. Appreciate all of you. We appreciate you, sir. Alan says, I will be listening while en route to the range. Long, cold day. Yeah, we had our first snow last night. Yeah, so... Yeah, it's pretty wild here. Just a nice little dusting. Please like, share, and comment today's show. Alan Kelly says, by the way, my wife says, depending on the circumstances with her mother, we will be moving to Tennessee. Well, I'd love to see you here in the volunteer state. Rich says, Will says, what's the name of the movie? In the Name of the Father. Can't recommend it enough. It's a fantastic movie. Daniel Day-Lewis, rightly so, won the Academy Award for it. It's a true story. Lots of stuff to learn there. Because one final thing before we leave this movie, what another thing is, he's kind of being a hippie and stuff. He doesn't understand violence. He's kind of LARPing with it, and then when he gets in prison, he meets a true IRA guy who is very comfortable with violence, and you see him finally, once he sees what this man is capable of, a true practitioner of ruthless violence. I mean, I think he cries maybe for the first time in the movie. He's like, I've never wanted to kill anybody before till now, because he finally sees what the ugly side of it is. And I think, again, this speaks to this leftist thing. Most of them are comfortable LARPing. I'm doing something. I've got my umbrella and he's shining a laser at the federal building. And it's just like, what are you doing? Guess what's going to happen when I shoot 5.56 ball into that umbrella? Not me personally, but when somebody who's there to do that, it's going to be bad.
What happened in Wisconsin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was all about chasing people down and beating them up and threatening them and everything until somebody started shooting back. Then all of a sudden, oh Lord, it got serious quick.
Michael Gentili is on. Donald Green says, good morning from People's Republic of Virginia. Yeah, and happy birthday. Yeah, happy birthday, Donald, and to all the former Marines that are watching this morning. God bless all of you. Super Fi. We're going to be talking about that here in just a moment. Will Parker says that, of course we are.
Marine Corps birthday pass? Come on.
Hell no. John Lejeune was the one, and I think in 1920 something, who said, we ain't never going to let the Marine Corps birthday slide. They're going to be a big celebration every year. Guile is on from the Philippines. Derek is on from North Carolina. Donald says, Alan Kelly, we are planning our exodus to free Florida. Well, good luck. We say that now, and I think the kids think this is just the way it always has been. People moving around like, no, man. This is a new phenomenon, and it ain't going away. And it's only going to accelerate something bad happening, because once you have these enclaves, they're going to be like, yeah, we're not doing the Sharia thing. John Trevor's on. Oh, Miss Lydia says, watching snowing in Murfreesboro. Yes, it is. My brother Jeff Brown says, happy birthday, brother, and other devil dogs 2000. Dr. Fuller, help me out here. 200. Thank you, sir. And Cruz is on. Are you still in Israel, or are you back in Rhode Island? Let us know where you're at, my friend. Hope you're safe here in the States. All the news that's fit to print. That is today's motto. And we'll start with something that's kind of, I read James Watson's book, The Double Helix, 10 years or so ago. Outstanding book. He is one of the co-discoverers of course, DNA's double helix, which is still amazing that it's only an art, the man who discovered it just died, Dr. Fuller. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's and I think it's become such sort of a norm that, oh yeah, the double helix of DNA. Everybody knows it, that it kind of erases how big a deal it is that we know this. And
the recency of it, right?
Right. The recency of it. And we've already broken it down and we've broken down the entire human genome at this point, right?
Oh yeah. Back in during Clinton's thing, the Human Genome Project. What's that?
Look how fast that happened, from discovery to breaking it down to where are we going to be? Now we got, what is it? CRISPR,
gene editing.
Right. Where are we going to be in 50 years, 100 years?
I know it's mind blowing. Cruz is back in Rhode Island. Thank God. Johnny King is on from Kentucky. Here's the thing though with Watson is, his legacy is tainted because, he made some comments about some genetic issues regarding race. And again, nobody ever said he was a liar.
He's got mad because he was close to eugenics with his commentary.
Exactly. That's what people didn't like. And they stripped him of his honorary titles. I don't think they took his Nobel Prize away. But I mean, his comments were really, they were not, I'll tell you what one of them was. In 2007, Watson again caused widespread anger when he told the Times of London he believed that testing indicated the intelligence of Africans was, quote, not really the same as ours, end quote. And like, oh my God. That's what every test has indicated that. I mean, and look at anywhere in sub-Saharan Africa. You don't see a thriving metropolitan. It's a mess, and there's something going on. And but Murray paid for this when he wrote the bell curve with his co-author. And again, nobody hit him on their work. It was, let's attack the IQ test. Let's attack ad hominem attacks between you two gentlemen who are Harvard PhDs. Like, why would you even look at this? And his point was the whole thing. And I think this is Watson's point as well. We need to take a look at this. We need to not shy away from it because it has broader social implications. And we need to do something. We need to have some thoughtful discussion as to what this may mean. And of course, he was vilified for it.
Sure. And we've said it many times on the show. If you can't name a problem, you can't fix a problem. So the first question I have is this a problem?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, he says it. Okay. People find it offensive. Right? Well, boil it down and look at it. That's what academia used to do. Okay. Yeah. Is he right? I don't know. Is it a problem with the testing protocols? Because that happens. Well, then fix the testing protocols. And
everybody, that's a
picture.
And you have your doctorate in education. So I think you're incredibly qualified to have this conversation. I, however, am not. But my degree is in social psychology, so I'm on the cusp of this kind of thought, and I find it fascinating. And I wish we would have these conversations and not be so afraid of being called racist, when really there is social implications as to what this could mean, especially since it's hereditary. Because and here's what Murray was saying in the bell curve. He was saying, look, you're going to have these. I think he called them cognitive bubbles. And I'll give you an example. When my son was at Sandia National Laboratory, all of his friends were scientists. They were either scientists at Boeing or some of the other smaller labs around there. And that's who he hung out with. That was his dating pool, right? And if you grew up in the inner city and in the projects, whatever, your dating pool is going to be limited. If you work at Chuck E. Cheese, because that's the best job you can get. God bless you. No, nothing wrong with that. But guess what? Your dating pool is going to be, it's not going to be a Mensa candidate.
Well,
so, I mean,
look at Hollywood, right?
Yeah.
You don't see Hollywood stars marrying the guy working at Chuck E. Cheese.
Marrying Rich Brown.
Well, in fairness, you were taken. And you far outkicked your coverage 35 years ago. So
I got no complaints, my dear friend.
Nor should you. But you're right. I mean, the love of my life just happened to live within 2 blocks of me, and I never traveled more than 4 blocks in my life. Well, that's coincidental. But you're right. You
Where did you meet your wife, Dr. Fuller, your current wife?
I met my wife on a range at the FBI Academy.
You see my point?
Which illustrates your point perfectly.
Yeah. So, I mean, and that's you don't really have access to people outside your own little bubble. And what gets inside your bubble are people that have the same IQ, especially as tech tends to accelerate. And another thing that has been brought about with the testing is you can't really have a meaningful, thoughtful conversation with someone 1 standard deviation from you, 2 standard deviations from your IQ, and you might as well be speaking to, a foreign species. It's like, I don't even understand what
is in the same boat, right? So we tend to gravitate towards people that we like, that are like us, and whatever us is. So, back to his commentary that got him in trouble. Okay, I will agree with you that that's an offensive thing to say. However, it doesn't sound to me, it didn't seem like it was coming from any sort of racial animus.
Absolutely
Much
not.
was coming from a scientist. And look, anybody who's spent any time in academia, there's some very socially awkward people in that crowd. There really are.
Excluding you,
And I am not going to exclude me. You can, I appreciate it if you do. But nonetheless, I will put myself up for a sound thrashing on that regard. So the idea that a lifelong academic, a Nobel Prize winner, a guy who discovered the double helix, would also say something that is socially unacceptable is not beyond the pale to me. That sounds like, yeah, that's right in their lane.
Yeah.
And look, you don't
He doesn't know it's offensive. He's just saying what's he's found to be.
He doesn't even think in those terms. Man, maybe he does. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's a diehard Nazi. I don't know. But look at what he had to say and then examine it, because this is what drives me bonkers about the racial issue. We get all upset when a white cop kills a black child, 12-year-old that looks like he's 18, is waving a toy gun around.
Tamir Rice is what we're talking about.
Right. And I get it. That we should be upset about that. That's a horrible thing. It's awful, but it might be lawful. But we never look at the underlying social problems, the breakdown of the inner city family, the huge predominance of single parent households, of a father with multiple children through multiple women, the absolutely governmentally dependent economy that these folks exist in. We don't look at any of these underlying social problems that are causing an inner city genocide. And it drives me bonkers when I was on the job. Oh, you're just a white cop, white fed. You don't know. And I'm like, I've had my liberal relations and friends tell me that you just don't understand. I'm like, how many times have you been in the hood? Do you know where it is? Can you find it without Google Maps? And then they really get pissed off and you say, how many Black lives that matter have you saved? How many? How many times have you administered a tourniquet on a dying 12-year-old, 13-year-old Black child? How many times have you conducted CPR and mouth to mouth on a dying junkie who's in the inner city? How many times? You haven't. And those of us who've been on the job, have been in those places, we see that genocide that's going on. So whereas Tamir Rice dying at the hands of a white police officer is tragic, in that same week, how many other Blacks were killed by Blacks? And we're not addressing that.
All right.
That genocide. And it's a failure on our part, and largely because we won't discuss the problem. We won't say there is a problem. So he kind of falls into that category for me. He may be wrong. He may be wildly racist and deserve what he got.
Right.
But he may be right. And he may have, and look, if we can fix it, we got to start with identifying it.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't identify it and we don't even talk about it, well, guess what happens?
Yeah. Well, James Mattis said, I think it was James Mattis said exactly what you said. If I was given 2 hours to solve the problem, I would spend the first hour and 55 minutes identifying the problem. Right. And once it's clearly identified, the solution's always, axiomatic at that point. And it's just, I mean, with Tamir Rice, I was just looking it up. According to his autopsy, he was 5'7", 195 pounds. So he's basically the same height and weight of an adult male, right? And he was one of the tallest kids in his 6th grade class. And so what I'm saying is we got to put the context in. 911 call, there's a man at the park waving a gun around. They come roll, this is in the climate of active shooters, right? Active killers. They come in, drop the gun. He doesn't drop it. You see a man with a gun in a park pointing it at you. I mean, you're not going to find out it's fake until it's over. And if you want to wait until to find out if it's fake, you might get shot in the head.
Right. And you're 5'7", 195. That's not a far off description from you.
No. I'm 5'8.5" and 220. I mean,
so throw a heavy coat on, and look, it is tragic. It's horrible. And I guarantee you, the police officer that pulled that trigger feels horrendous. And
I can't imagine. I mean,
all of us worry about that when we were on the job, right? I mean, every one of us did.
Yeah.
So again, if you don't identify the problem, you can't.
I think, you're right. And it's like, okay, well, where were the parents? What in God's name? I mean, and when you roll in, it wasn't like there was a bunch of kids and there was water coming out of those guns and they shot no, it appeared to be what it was.
It appeared to be what was called in too. Let's not forget the police
That's my
officer didn't
point.
show up there for no reason. He was
Yeah.
called on a report of man with a gun in the park. So,
And called in by people who live, in a terrified existence of shootings in their community all the time. Peter is on. Good morning, sir. He's out there in Rhode Island. Coin number 2604. If you want to find out if becoming a coin member of our community is the right decision, I can't tell you. Don't know your context and your circumstances. But we live in some very bizarre times. So take a click on the link of today's show notes and find out. Guile says, happy birthday, USMC Semper Fi. Will Parker says, look at the average IQ across the globe. It isn't the same, and it matters in many respects. It does matter in this economy that we live in. Will Rhodes is on. Good morning, Rich and Dr. Fuller. Goss says Chuck E. Cheese. Yum. As a parent, I've spent a lot of time in Chuck E. Cheese, and there's nothing yum about Chuck E. Cheese. It is it's a gross, sticky, there's a automated rat singing. What the hell?
When you're in your corporate mascot is a rat, you gotta ask. My 7-year-old was invited by one of her best friends to go to a birthday party last week, and it was at Chuck E. Cheese. And my daughter was like, I love her, but I'm not going there. I hate that place. I'm like, all right, kid, let's go get ice cream.
Good on her, man. Yeah. I spent a lot. Our kids freaking loved it. And those little pictures you sit in the thing and it takes a little sketch like thing. I've got those in my journals. Those are some of the most precious memories to me. But
my wife loves those freaking photo booths, and it doesn't matter where we go, we cram everybody in, and it's getting more difficult as the kids get bigger. It doesn't matter. She sees it. We're going. We're smashing everybody into that thing. So
yeah, that's one of the cool things. It's little time capsules that I can look back on there. Matt is on from Tulsa. Football Lovers 33-6 says, I'd have to marry a cave woman if I single today. Yeah, you and me both, sir. You and me both. And she might grab me by the hair and pull me off into the cave. She'd be a lucky lady, I'll tell you that much, Dr. Fuller.
Well, she could get a handful of hair. She'd be all right.
Exactly. She'd be a handful of hair. She'd be lucky. God says, I loved it as a kid. Yeah, as a kid, I'm sure it was a fascinating thing. As a parent, just sitting in there and, oh God, when was it? Have they run out of money yet?
And the pizza was torn. Oh God, yeah.
Yeah. Alan says Chuck E. Cheese Hell. Donald says, look up the song Chuck E. Cheese Hell. It's hilarious. I'll have to check that out. Back in all the news that's fit to print, Dr. Fuller, I don't have to tell you this. It's the Marine Corps' 250th birthday.
Happy birthday, boys.
Thank you, sir. Founded November the 10th, 1775, when the Second Continental Congress authorized the raising of 2 battalions of Marines to serve as a landing force for the Continental Navy during the Revolution. Our first amphibious landing was in New Providence, Bahamas, Dr. Fuller, during the Revolution. Did you know that?
That seems fitting. No, I did not. I know that the Navy was founded by stolen boats on Lake Champlain.
Isn't that nice?
So I did not know that the first landing was in the Bahamas. And again, that seems right in their lane.
Yeah, exactly. And, I tell you, it founded in Tun Tavern, Samuel Nichols, who is, I believe, they say he was the first commandant. He may have been, I can't remember, but I believe he was like the head bartender there, owned Tun Tavern. I can't remember. And he was like their head recruiter because, he gets you all liquored up, sign here, Sarge, and somebody's going to take you off and give you a musket.
Just short of a press gang.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Are you perfect?
None of us are.
None of us are. All the news that's fit to print, Dr. Fuller. What do you think? Your Democrats cave, splinter from Schumer as the Senate advances a plan to reopen the government.
Yeah, and I see a bunch of that sort of verbiage this morning, and it kind of bugs me that we're saying they cave and they splintered and they fragmented, and because it's being painted as a loss for one side and a win for the other side. And the whole thing just is driving me nuts because at the end of the day, there's 536 people were responsible for this mess. And there is blame to go around on both sides of the aisle. And you can say, well, my guy did right and your guy did wrong all day long. And then we look back at what happened under Obama, and all of a sudden your guy did right and my guy did wrong back then. And the truth of the matter is, these knuckleheads have one job, Carl. Their biggest job, their most important single job, as laid out in the United States Constitution, is to pass a freaking budget. And when was the last time Congress passed a budget and the President of the United States signed it into law versus a continuing resolution? And it just drives me like, oh, we're gonna paint this as, oh, one more failure of the Democrats and one more win for the Republicans. Okay, fine. But the truth is, all you did was kick the can down the road to January, because that's how long the CR lasts. If
January 31st, and it's over.
And we're right back to where we were. So what they figured out was, hey, look, if we don't pay these people over the holidays, we're really going to pay for it in the midterms.
Mm-hmm.
So let's kick it through, and we'll crow about victory. And both sides are going to crow victory on this one, I promise you, because that's what happens every single time. And then in January, we're going to, I don't know that they'll shut things down again in January, because it won't get the media attention, and everyone will get saturated and people get pissed off. So they'll probably quietly pass something then. But it's shameless. It's shameless on both sides. And, painting one side as the winner and one side of the loser really does simply limit our conversation to this event and not to the broader mosaic of these idiots up on Capitol Hill and their inability to do their one most important job.
And I think a lot of people may have forgotten, or, you were a congressional liaison for the FBI, correct?
I was, please don't make the mistake of thinking that I was up there influencing policy. I was more of a glorified armed Uber driver. But yes, I was up there, and I did get to sit in a lot of meetings and watch the sausage get made, if you will.
Yeah. What was your kind of, when you went into it, what you thought it was going to be versus what it was? What can you give us any anecdotes without naming names?
Yeah. I think I've told this one in the past, and I continue to use it because I know it's safe. I was involved in the Benghazi hearings, and I was the FBI's lead guy on Benghazi in terms of liaising with Congress about it. And at the time, Trey Gowdy, Republican from South Carolina, former district attorney or assistant district attorney, one of the two, he was the Republicans' point man on that. And his marching orders were clearly keep this thing alive, beat the drum, hang it around Hillary Clinton's neck like a millstone so she has to deal with it when she goes into the election cycle, because the writing was on the wall a year and a half out that she was going to be the nominee. And Elijah Cummings, who's passed away, was the senior Democrat on the Benghazi committee, what they call the ranking member. So there's the chairman, which will be from the party that's in charge. At the time, the House was Republican, and the ranking member will be the senior guy from the not in charge party. And politically, I found myself largely agreeing with Gowdy and mostly disagreeing with Cummings, just on their stated belief systems and the way they voted and what have you. But I spent a lot of time in rooms with those two guys and their, all of their toadies, and I was a toady for the FBI guys and what have you. But watching them talk and watching them bluster and watching them go at it. And what was interesting was, to me, was though I may agree with a lot of what Gowdy had to say, as an individual, as a person, he was really hard to take.
Yeah.
He was one of those attorneys that went to law school and then never got over it. You knew he was an attorney because he would tell you he was an attorney. I was in a room one time, there's 25 people in the room. And he was crowing about, I'm an attorney, I'm a lawyer, I do this, I do that, and the other thing. And my boss was not there, but his boss was. And his boss had been a assistant United States attorney in Vermont when I was up there. I worked a ton of cases with the guy, and it just kind of worked out that we ended up in the same place. And so he's listening to him, and finally Gowdy takes a breath, and the FBI guy is, look, everybody in this room is an attorney.
Right. And
some of us have worked at the federal level, which was an obvious backhand slap that Gowdy had never worked at the federal level.
Mm-hmm. He
says, can we just move on? And so Gowdy was kind of annoying personally, but politically you find yourself kind of, I got stuck in an elevator one time. Well, not stuck. We were riding with Elijah Cummings.
Mm-hmm.
And there are pins that they wear. The actual members have a pin on their lapel that indicates that they are a member. And, you got to know what you're looking at. But if you do know what you're looking at, you can tell that they're a Democrat or Republican, what have you. And I was wearing a pin that was similar, but it was an FBI seal pin. Well, I get on the elevator with him. He assumes that I'm a member of Congress that he doesn't know. Mm-hmm. And we just start shooting the breeze, talking about whatever ridiculous. We just come out of that meeting. So he just kind of assumed I was supposed to be there. I don't know Actually, I shouldn't say I knew what he was assuming. I just kind of think that's what happened. Nicest guy in the world. Couldn't have been more polite, asking me about this, asking me. He wasn't just talking about himself. So it kind of underscored the idea that you may like what they do politically. You may agree with most of what they do politically. I didn't agree with everything that Dowdy had to say, and I don't disagree with everything that Cummings had to say. But that had nothing to do with who they were personally. And I saw that all the time up on that hill, just all the time. Some of them are just different from their public personas. Some of them are worse than their public personas. Dianne Feinstein, as crazy as she seems to those on the right, as a person, she was worse. Way worse.
Oh, really?
Oh, my God. She had a rule in her office at the time I was there that none of her female staff could wear red because red comes with a gravitas that only she could pull off. The women had to have their hair, her words, coiffed when they came in. You couldn't just like throw it back in a ponytail and roll into the office. Nope, wasn't having it. She mandated skirt lengths, which that one I happen to agree with because some of the interns would show up there like they just come out of a club, walking around up there. We call them skin turns.
You say it like it's a bad thing. Okay.
It was not.
It's a judgment-free zone here, Dr.
No judge, just observation. What was the speaker's house? John, was it Bonham? John
Bonham.
What's that?
It was John Bonham, wasn't
it? Yeah, something like that. He's either that or maybe I'm mistaking the guitarist, but whatever. But he was a speaker and he smoked like a chimney. You go into his office and you could be madder than Hades. And his entire office was staffed by like 22-year-old women that were like, it wasn't quite a club atmosphere, but it was pretty freaking close. So you'd walk in there and you'd see constituents come in and they'd look around, start standing up taller, sucking it in. I'm like, that's good psychological warfare.
Yeah, Bonner. There it is.
Bonner. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael.
Then there was a guy and I talked about him in my book that was from Atlanta, who he was the guy who's concerned about Guam capsizing.
Oh, yes. My God.
And, look,
a buddy of mine ran against him.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, sure did.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah, the American Warrior Society, because we were in the Marines together, we endorsed him as a candidate, even though he was a Democrat, pro-gun, retired Marine, just happens to be an African-American from that, district. And he actually went, after he got out of the Marine Corps as an enlisted guy, he went to Harvard.
Oh, wow.
And I really, Juan Parks is his name. He's been up here to the forum. Great guy. We endorsed him, and unfortunately he lost McCackey. He lives to that freaking guy.
Yeah, it's stunning. For those who have never watched it, I highly recommend you go to YouTube and you search up the congressional testimony. And was it the CNO that was in there, the Chief of Naval Operations? It was, I don't know. It was some 4-star admiral that was in there trying to pitch to Congress the idea that we need to put more sailors and Marines on Guam. And this congressman, in all seriousness, expressed deep and abiding concern that would result in the island of Guam capsizing. Look it up. I'm not making it up. And I ran into him in the hallway one time, and he was, he comes off as dumb as a bag of hammers in his media postings. And he was not quite that smart when I ran into him.
Yeah, he didn't disappoint, huh?
He did not disappoint. So, the idea that people get so fired up about my candidate and my guy, or all politicians are criminals except for the one representative from my, that I'm a constituent of. That guy's okay, but the rest of them are just crooks. It's just not true. It's just, they're all, and look, Republican, Democrat, it's go back and read Dr. Seuss's The Sneetches.
Oh, it's a great one.
It's
star-bellied Sneetches.
Right. You've got star-bellies and non-star-bellied Sneetches, but they're all Sneetches. And that's the way I look at Congress. They're all Sneetches.
That's where Michael Gentili lives, is the land of the Sneetches there in Franklin, Tennessee, one of the most wealthy zip codes in the country. And it's just growing every day. I can't imagine, what it is now with all the lefties rushing in from California.
And to, was that Michael Gentili that had that post there about they're not nice people, Crockett and Omar? Mm-hmm. I doubt they are. I doubt they are. But another thing that we don't pay a lot of attention to is that these people are surrounded by staff members. Mm-hmm. And those staff members, while they get federal pay, are not protected by federal pay or federal employee protections. So they serve at the pleasure of the member of Congress. So literally, Dianne Feinstein can come in and go, you know what, your hair is not coiffed appropriately. You're fired. Pack your stuff. Get out. And you're done. You're done that day. Which, isn't a shock to people in the private sector. They're like, yeah, that happens. But that doesn't happen in governmental service, for good or ill.
Yeah. Well, Tennessee's a right to hire state. And some states are a right to work. Some states are a right to hire. Tennessee's a right to hire state. So I can smoke your ass just because I don't like your hair this today.
The thing that results in, though, is that they're surrounded by sycophants.
100%.
Nobody up there wants to be the one to deliver bad news to the boss.
Yeah.
Because if you deliver bad news to the boss, you get clobbered. And so everybody spins it in a positive fashion. And everything that comes out of their mouth is met by a bunch of people going, oh, yeah, boss, that's brilliant. Oh, how do you do it? You are so, I wish other people knew how smart you were.
Can you imagine living in that bubble like these people do?
For decades.
And it's not just it's not just politicians. Obviously, it's media personalities, movie stars, athletes. I mean,
fame.
I want no part of it, man.
Right. Well, you need somebody that walks behind you and you remember, thou art mortal.
Right? That's right. Memento Mori. Was that a slave who would whisper it behind Julius Caesar's ear or something like that?
Remember. And so you end up with these people, and oh, by the way, it's not just their staff, right? Everybody that gets near them wants something from them. They go to a party and everybody wants to rub elbows, want to be seen next to the senator. So they tell them all good stuff. Oh, wow, I read your thing. That was genius. They get to a point where they just think they are the smartest person in the world.
And often they're wrong. Alan Kelly says, that right to work will go away in Virginia. The left is pushing collective bargaining. I have no doubt they are. And that takes us right on back into today's show. Man, this shoot up in Brazil was freaking horrific. Yeah, they tried to do a raid on I can't remember the name of the it's like the
in one
commando.
Of the favelas.
Say that again.
In one of the favelas.
Yes, but there's some gang they were going after the commando de, I don't know. But it's led to 117 people being killed. And none of the suspects that they were after in the raid were captured. So it's just like, what a freaking horrific failure. I mean, that's definitely a no-go zone at this point. I mean, unbelievable, man. Maybe coming to a city near you as Trump continues his war on the cartels. What do you think?
I hope not. But, if I was living in Brownsville, Texas, I'd be a little concerned. I really would be. And, could it happen here? Folks, you're shocking yourself. You're shockingly ignorant if you think it couldn't happen here. And it doesn't have to become a way of life, right? It doesn't have to be that, this part of town is now taken over by armed gangs with fully automatic weapons and dish Ks on their rooftops. All that has to happen is, one day, one pitched battle in the streets, and how many you'd end up with 50 people dead.
Yeah.
Can
you imagine if that happened in, like I said, El Paso or Brownsville or something like that? Or oh boy! And I tell you, the more that we schwack them, and my brother pointed out to me that we're finally moving into the area around Baja, which is much worse than what's coming through the Caribbean via Venezuela. I mean, if we're going to start doing drone strikes there, you just start making more missiles. You need more Hellfires. You don't have enough. But what are we ever going to do about the demand? I mean, they're not coming here and forcing it down Americans' throats, man.
Right. And that goes back to what we were saying earlier about there's a cultural problem that underpins this violence problem. And, if you're going to start shooting people on boats in Baja, in the Bay of California, the risk of collateral damage is going to skyrocket because there's a lot more people down there on vacation than zipping across the Caribbean.
Yeah,
it's a risky policy, and frankly, if you're zipping along around Baja, it's pretty easy to follow you to where you land. It really is. Of course, we don't have a full participation, shall we say, by the Mexican authorities, because they're getting bribed and bought off too.
I would submit if what I perceive my brother enlightened me to that, hey, most of the, because of course he's done hundreds of boardings. I've done zero, right? So I'm definitely pushing the I believe button. And it's like, okay, as a former boarding officer, my brother, hey, these people are not cartel members. They're forced into this. And we're just schwacking these people. And it's like they have a gun to their head. I would much rather board them, seize it, get the intelligence value, et cetera, and chase down a chain of custody on where this came from, and let's do something. But I just think I don't, and please don't tear up my conservative credentials. I consider myself a paleo conservative, but I just think these extrajudicial killings is not good. We can try to board them, and if they resist, then we can sink them or shoot them. But until then, I don't like this.
And we discussed this, was it last show or certainly last week?
Mm-hmm.
It's just I think it's a bad policy.
I do too.
I mean, look, if it was a shooting war and you're zipping across a battlefield,
I'll pull the trigger for you, buddy. I got no problem.
Right? Because you recall you weren't exactly going out there and checking with people to make sure which side they were on before you dropped a 155 battery on.
That's right.
So I get it in wartime, but this isn't wartime. And we have options. It's not like there's 500 of these boats coming across at once and we can't stop and board them all.
Yeah.
Which kind of surprises me. They haven't pulled that stunt yet.
Mm-hmm.
But just whacking people out of the blue is a little bit risky. Because like we talked about before, I grab your family up and say, look, you're going to drive this boat from here to there and I'll let your family go. If you don't, well, then, I'm going to make you stand by and watch as I torture them to death.
Yeah, I'm gonna put your daughter in Nevada acid and make you watch.
So
I'm driving the boat, brother. Come on, man. What are you talking about? Las Plumas, Las Platas. He wants silver or lead. I mean, that's a very convincing argument, isn't it?
Argument. Yeah, less so in the abstract. When you're talking about philosophical concerns, it's a whole other animal when you're standing there in the moment.
Yeah. Will Parker reminds us that
your brother being on the show would be a good idea to discuss some of these things.
Yeah, I think maybe Jeff, we'll have to talk about that if you're still on. I've had him on the show a couple of times, but definitely to discuss that, I think it would be very appropriate. His ex-wife, she was a commander of a Coast Guard cutter, I believe, and was on the Discovery Channel, did a show on her, and they had one of the largest cocaine seizures while she was at the helm as a commander. Yeah. So you can go back and watch that, and Stacey Brown is giving them hell, seizing tons and tons of cocaine. Will Parker reminds us that Nancy Pelosi was smart enough to take advantage of insider trading to increase her wealth, approaching $400 million. Some people are just lucky, Dr. Fuller. I mean,
they're so lucky. I find it very interesting that she now wants to immigrate to Florida. She wants to leave.
Are you serious?
Do you hear about this?
Hell no.
She was talking about, and she may have actually concluded the sale and bought some property down in Florida to move to. Look it up. I mean, I don't know whatever. I never followed up to see what did happen with that because the word got out, and of course, she was vilified very quickly for it.
Okay, somebody of the 13 folks watching today posted.
Somebody jump on it.
Yeah, somebody jump on that. I can't believe that. That's got to be.
Maybe it is, but because I never did a whole lot of research. I was too busy laughing. I was like, that would be hysterical if she actually did that.
That'd be great, wouldn't it? Rasmic is on. Gold members in the house. Says, sorry I'm late. Have a great week ahead, everybody. Yeah, glad to have you on, sir. What the hell is going on with Virginia, Donald Green and Allen and those of you folks watching from Virginia? This is insane. Here's your new Attorney General, Jay Jones, in a text message thread from a couple of years ago. I guess some friends were like playing, you get three people and 2 bullets. What are you choosing, right? And he says, Gilbert, Hitler, and Paul Part. Gilbert gets 2 bullets to the head. Spoiler, put Gilbert in the crew with the 2 worst people and he receives both bullets every time. And I guess his friend was like, hey, please, this is not funny. Stop. Who is this Gilbert he's talking about? Well, this is the gentleman here, Todd Gilbert, the former Speaker of the House for Virginia. He went on to say, as if that wasn't bad enough in a subsequent phone call and text messages, your new Attorney General in Virginia, Mr. Jones, suggested that Gilbert's children dying in their mother's arms would be a way for the politician to, quote, feel the pain personally and potentially change his views on gun safety legislation. He also called Gilbert's children, quote, little fascists. What in the hell is going on there?
Well, it's bad enough that he said it in polite society. It's worse that that didn't destroy his career. And so what's he doing? Is he playing to the extremist fringe of his voting base? Well, he got elected, so it would seem so. There was a time when you'd say something like this, your own party would throw you out.
Oh my God, absolutely.
Now they nominate him for office and let him run and support him and give him money and say, go forth.
I mean, back in our day, we can all, say Chappaquiddick. Of course, that happened before I was born, but I know what that was. But I mean, nothing as significant as Chappaquiddick. Hell, let's look at what happened to, who was it? Gary Hart.
Yeah, you can't catch me if I were to be screwing around. You couldn't catch me.
And there he takes a picture of a beautiful young woman, and the name of the boat was Monkey Business, and that was it. His career was over.
Yep.
I mean, and nowadays we got in a time of assassinations and stuff, we have politicians getting away with it. Now you're going to be the attorney general, and yet you wanted to kill this beautiful family's children. And I'm aghast. I mean, not to be overly maudlin about it, but I just can't believe it.
No, but and one of the downstream effects I think that this has that doesn't get much attention is what kind of a chilling effect does that have for those who might be inclined to run for office?
Mm-hmm.
If I know this is the environment that I'm going to have to put myself and my family in, I'm not even considering running for elective office. What are you, crazy? The people, I mean, forget the people that are out there that might actually pull the trigger. My colleague across the aisle is going to say this about me because he disagrees with me politically. What has happened to us? I mean,
if you're Gilbert, I mean, you need to run for the Tennessee line, buddy, or North Carolina. You got to get out of there because you think you're going to get a fair shake when he controls the instruments of investigative power.
Well, not in this environment, because at this point we've seen both sides of the aisle weaponize law enforcement and weaponize the investigative process. And for most people, being put through the process is punishment enough. You don't have to put Gilbert in prison.
It would destroy me.
Yeah. But if you had to pay $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 in a defense, to pay for your defense, what's that do to you?
Oh my God.
What's that do to you? And what's it going to do to this guy?
Only to be oh yeah, my bad.
No, sorry about that. Yeah, again, there's no downside for the prosecutor. There's no civil or criminal remedy for that. None. And this is what we talk about on the show about why seeing the federal government weaponized is such a concern. Yeah. Because it can then and will filter down to the local level. And the next thing you know, your local sheriff and your local DA have decided that, you know what, burning you to the ground is going to be politically expedient for me.
Imagine that.
And now you've gone from being an individual to becoming rocket fuel for their political agenda.
Yeah.
Get Andrew Branca talking about Zimmerman sometime, and talking about the people that were on the other side of his prosecution, the people that chose to prosecute him and ran forward with it, and what ended up happening with their careers after the fact. It's very illustrative.
Really?
Oh yeah.
I did not. Yeah.
Oh yeah. The prosecutor, for example, the female prosecutor that they had to bring in from another jurisdiction because the local prosecutor was like, no, there's nothing here. They brought her in to prosecute the case, and she eventually became a judge.
There's so much misinformation. And this again is where I think Obama, as someone who is, part African American and part Irish or whatever his mother's lineage was, could have really stepped into the breach and controlled a lot of this narrative. Instead, he gets on screen. Could have been my son. Like, well, let's show the back of Zimmerman's head. It's a bloody freaking mess. And let's look at the totality of it. Again, wasn't he the president of the law review at Harvard or something like that? I mean, this is a brilliant legal mind Obama was, but he couldn't stop himself from being a freaking politician for 5 minutes and do the right thing to quell the misinformation, which goes to Mark's comment here. Says legal criminals, politicians. Yeah. Legalized criminality.
And it's important to note that Mr. Hamilton, I believe, is a citizen of Canada.
So that's correct. Yeah.
This is not an issue limited to the United States.
No, sir. Who was that crack addicted governor of Toronto? And I think that's where Mark is from. You remember that Ford? I think his name was.
Yeah.
Whoo.
Mess. Telling Marion Barry, hold my beer.
Yeah,
hold my crack pipe.
Yeah. And Jim is on in Indiana. Michael says, can either of you comment on the political dissonance there with a 98 plus year history of the FBI and the NYPD, and there's still 5 families. Maybe we do a show on that. Maybe you have a brother up there who worked those cases and can really.
Yeah, I can probably find somebody. I mean, I only ever ran into the La Cosa Nostra tangentially, because people go on vacation. But what I will tell you about the 5 families is that, yes, they do still exist, but they are a shell of what they used to be.
Yeah.
One, because they just don't make people like Lucky Luciano or Gambino or any of these others like they used to.
Yeah.
And 2, the FBI just, every time one of them sticks their head up too far, they get whacked right off by the Bureau. They long ago broke the code of silence.
Yeah.
So now you grab one of them, he rolls quicker than, you can barely write it down fast enough when they start talking. So
yeah, Rico, who that act or law, whatever, it really destroyed them, because it's like, oh, you've got your fingerprint anywhere in this, you're just as guilty.
And old school mobsters would do the 20 years. They would do the 30 years. The new school ones,
hell no,
not
a chance.
So yeah, they still exist, but what was the that show with the dragons, Game of Thrones? Mm-hmm. Right? There's a show in there where they talk about, well, the dragons used to be this big and this big. The last dragon that died was the size of a dog, and that's kind of what's happened to the mob families. They used to be dragons, and now they're about the size of a.
Yeah. Brian Schuler's off in North Texas. Will Parker says, regarding the Wicked Witch of the West, Nancy Pelosi, it was rumored in 2021 she had bought a mansion at Jupiter Island, alleged to be false. Keep digging, guys. I mentioned that. Let's see here. People wonder why someone walks up silently and gets loud for just a moment. Alan says the same election circumstances as 8 years ago, and apathy in off-year elections. Also, Northern Virginia, Richmond, and Tidewater area loaded with left-leaning constituents, and apathy for the Ryan, my vote won't matter. And I think a lot of people feel that way, and they just don't vote, which is I'm going to get into this one here, because kind of to Alan's point. This is your new lieutenant governor here, pro-Palestinian Ghazala Hashimi, the first elected Muslim woman in the U.S. And here she is on a pro-Palestinian site on Instagram. She is now your lieutenant governor elect. She
was in the Georgia State Senate, and she's now the Virginia lieutenant governor. That is
correct.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So she's going to have tie-breaking authority in the state Senate and first in line of secession. Here's how many votes she got. So add those 2 numbers up. There's a hell of a lot more than 2 million people in Virginia. You see my point? Mm-hmm. I think it's what Alan's saying there. Where were the votes?
Well, and we've discussed this on the show before, that this is what's feeding into both sides playing to their extremist fringe, because you don't have to get the people in the middle anymore. I mean, honestly, the only thing you have to worry about is that your constituents won't show up.
Mm-hmm.
That's really the issue. So if you can activate your true believers, they'll show up. But if you don't activate them, they won't vote. Nobody that voted for Reed was going to go vote for Hashimi, but they'll stay home. And when you're talking about tight races, I mean, look at the raw numbers there. It's less than 100 or 150,000 ish difference.
Yeah. And Virginia has 8.8 million people. Now, let's say half of those are not even half, probably a third of those are under 18 can't vote. But you're still talking about, 6 million potential voters and only 2 million showed up. This is disgusting. And now, people scratch their head. How did this happen? We have a female Muslim as our lieutenant governor, next in line to the throne, so to speak. It's like, man. But by the way, she is pro-Palestinian. She got slapped around for some anti-Semitic remarks. Of course, she apologized for them, but no, it's in your heart. That's what's coming out of your mouth.
And the million votes she got, I guarantee you, the lion's share of that are her people, right? Of course, whoever she defines as her people, they're going to be. The Muslims are going to say, "What? One of our people is running. We're voting for her, regardless of her politics. We're voting for her." There will be people that will vote for her that they just want to see a female in the lieutenant governor job. They will just want to see a Muslim in the lieutenant governor job. There will be people with white guilt that are like, oh my God, let's write hundreds of years of wrong, or however they perceive it, and they'll go, not a bunch of them are voting for her, in my estimation, based on her policies and politics.
You're right. And that's see, this is why we make a great Laurel and Hardy duo, because you teed it up perfectly. And that is something I've talked about on here many times, the tyranny of the majority, famously described in, of course, Alex de Tocqueville's book, Democracy in America. He recognized this as a problem. Widely, he used it to describe how a majority could use its power to suppress the rights and the will of the minorities, even in a democracy. As a matter of fact, democracy is a fertile playground for the majority to run rampant over everyone else. Of course, James Madison and John Adams both talked about this too, as being a tool of the majority.
Yeah, what I find interesting is de Tocqueville's book was written 200 years ago, give or take, by a Frenchman.
Yeah, more than that.
By a Frenchman touring around the United States.
Yeah. And
it is so prescient. It's unbelievable. I highly recommend it to
I agree too. Just
public.
I mean, the parts about how the Ohio River, the cultures north of the Ohio River, one way, and of course it's somewhat similar today. Yeah. But I say this because look at what happens when you have areas where Muslims become the majority, right? Minneapolis is the first major U.S. city to allow the Muslim call to prayer to be broadcast publicly 5 times a day, and New York City permits it on Fridays and during Ramadan. Well, I bet with Mamdani in there, it may become more than just a little Friday nuisance to those of us that don't habla. Other cities with large Muslim populations, such as Dearborn, Michigan, and cities like Chicago, Detroit, Houston, and Washington, D.C., have mosques that may broadcast the call to prayer, although there can be local regulations, occasionally community concerns about the noise. This is unacceptable.
Well, what's interesting, the concern is about the noise.
Yeah, exactly.
The concern is not the propaganda element of this. The concern is not the cultural invasion element of this. The concern is, well, it's kind of noisy.
You're missing the forest for the trees, folks.
You're missing the forest for the trees. And look, like you, I have served in Muslim countries, a bunch of them, and you hear the call to prayer. Okay, you win in Rome, right? You're in a Muslim country, fine, but it does not, on our money at this point, say "In Allah we trust."
That's right.
And I'm very secular about things. Faith is not a blessing I am yet to receive, if we put it that way. But this is a Christian country.
Yeah.
So I would suggest that careful consideration be given before we allow this sort of thing to happen, especially given their track record. I mean, we look at the track record of this particular religion, and look, full disclosure, only people that ever shot at me on a regular basis have been Muslim. Okay.
Yeah.
So, let's get my bias out there right away. But I think there's a very strong argument.
You may or may not have sent some Muslims to Allah.
May or may not have. If you can prove it, indict me. Otherwise, leave me alone. I'm not saying that. Well, not in this country. Let's do it that way.
There you go.
So, I think there's a very strong argument to be made that it is more a political movement than it is a religion. It's a political movement wrapped in a religion versus the other way around. So you got to be careful about this stuff. You really do, because I really don't see Dearborn coming back. I don't see it transitioning. I don't see the Islamic folks there assimilating. I simply don't. I mean,
that's the thing. Dearborn citizens cannot vote themselves out of this problem. Because once they being these Muslim immigrants, they're using our laws against us to enact what they want. And that has always been the problem with democracy. And again, like you said, I love the fact that you pointed out, like, no, it's just a nuisance. I don't know what they're saying. It's just a bunch of yeah. I don't know what it is. Well, what it is Allah is great. I testify that there is no God but Allah. I testify that Muhammad is the messenger of God, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, what they're saying is anathema to perhaps people like Dr. Gordon Botson and myself. I am a devout Christian and I stand with Israel, and I find this crap abhorrent. It doesn't make me an Islamophobe. It just makes me something that we are founded on a Christian nation, and that's what we are and have been. Judeo-Christian laws are the foundational structure of everything we have. So, and I'm not ready to give that up for Sharia. I don't want to see my granddaughter wearing a burqa, and I'm not interested in that. And, you and I were talking over the weekend. There was a group of 3 or 4 women at a nightclub, drinking spritzers or doing whatever the hell they were doing, rich white women, like, the caliphate, my daddy, my brother in Islam. And I'm thinking, does anybody want to tell them what the haram says about what they're out there doing? They're unaccompanied. They don't have a male member of their family with them. They don't have their face and head covered. They're in an establishment consuming alcohol, and you want the caliphate? You are the stupidest people I've ever seen. And I'd hate to use that kind of, I'm intolerant of this.
If the shoe fits. And that's the issue to me. I mean, you can make the arguments for diversity. You can fight back and forth about it. But if you don't have a societal baseline, the society is going to fragment. And I think that's the path that we are currently on. And hey, look, I recognize I'm an old guy, and maybe, former generations, maybe that's what the new generation wants. They want, 40 different countries to come out of the United States. I'm sure the Chinese do. I'm sure the Russians do.
Oh yeah.
But
our enemies are having a field day with this. Trust me.
And look, what's it costing them? It costs them some bots, it's a little bit of money they throw around, and then they put some of their best people on the internet to fan the flames.
Yeah, and this Ted brings out the point that Dearborn public schools are 93% federally funded. And again, we're paying for what? Sharia education. Can you imagine? I mean, and again, as a Christian, if I lived there, I don't know what I do. To be honest with you, do I move, or does all of a sudden, these speakers start getting ripped down in the middle of the night? I don't know.
Or both.
Exactly.
Yeah, you and I are fortunate enough to be able to vote with our feet if need be.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason I didn't retire to California. There's a reason I didn't retire in Vermont. There's a reason I didn't retire in New York or Virginia, for that matter. Alan Kelly, apologies. I've lived in all those states. There's a reason that I'm in South Carolina.
Well, he says, what happened to assimilation? That culture does not assimilate, and not all cultures do. Their edict, the precepts of the Quran, does not allow them to do that. They would be a bad Muslim if they did, so they cannot do that. And I understand that, but there's places you can go to enjoy all the benefits of Sharia law. You and your wife and children can enjoy whatever it is you think you're missing, and I hope you enjoy that. These are I went to the new lieutenant governor's website. Of course, I do the reading, so you don't have to. That's one of the things I bring here to the show. And I read through her issues, and it is every single freaking leftist talking point. Reproductive freedom, it means abortion up to moment of delivery, basically. Of course, I'm being a bit of a smart ass, but there's, the thing I like about this, or I find it disgusting about it at the same time. If you put reproductive health, and then I give you 2 sentences, I want women to have free and affordable access to reproductive, full stop. Okay. You can read into that whatever you want. And then, of course, gun violence protections. We want to get rid of assault weapons and all this other stuff. Fighting bigotry. You can imagine where that is. I read through it all this morning, and I'm like, oh my Lord. And she's next in line for, let me say this again. Maybe y'all didn't hear me. Virginia, the birthplace of more American presidents than anywhere. And I think they would roll over in their graves if they saw her talking points. It's just insanity.
And it's stunning, as you pointed out earlier, that 1 million people put that state on that path.
Just 1 million out of almost 9 million, 8.8.
And I want to be clear about, the call to prayer earlier. I don't really want to have a Catholic priest atop a pinnacle hollering out his religious beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
You want to ring some bells? Okay. You want to, I got no problem with some bells. There's really, there's no overt message to that. If the Muslims just want to have a guy go up there and go, hey, time to go to church, I don't really have a problem with that either. I'm not really into the voice. What I do have a problem with is the broadcasting of propaganda 5 times a day.
Mm-hmm.
I don't look. Religion is, to me, from my perspective, is an intensely personal or community-based thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really go for people knocking on my door telling me about, hey, have you taken this path to God, Yahweh, Allah, Nirvana? If I want to talk about it, I'll come to you. I don't need you blasting it into my house. I don't need you going to my schools and educating my children in that any more than I need a transvestite in there reading a book about Bobby's two dads.
Right.
I just these are conversations that I want to have in my family with my children based on the way my wife and I approach it. I don't need the propaganda, and I don't endorse that propaganda from anybody, from any group. And I object to it. I'm particularly coming from a group that I have such a stressful history with.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I briefly mentioned haram as a law, and I think if you looked at the laws governing, in that, you'd be like, okay, I can get on board as a Christian. A lot of these things, slander, adultery, there's a lot of things that we would probably align with, but then there's some really bizarre ones. Like it's illegal for you to pay interest to financial institutions. That's part of haram. Like, why? That flies in the face of a capitalist society. So again, I would encourage you, if you want that, there's a place in Syria for you, because I'm going to tee up the next thing we're going to talk about, Dr. Fuller. Here's your president of Syria. And it is insane to me that the United States government once had a $10 million reward on his head, and now he's gripping and grinning all over Washington. And
not for nothing, Yasser Arafat got a Nobel Peace Prize. So, the ability to pivot is nothing new. But I'd be interested to know if his politics have pivoted along with it. He's hung up the Taliban headdress and he's put on a suit and a tie. Has he changed his spots?
No.
And it can't be done. Look, not for nothing, but the IRA eventually walked away from violence. There were some real scumbags involved in that movement, and they put down their guns and changed their tunes.
Okay, I'll pause just real quick on that.
I say that by way of teeing up a response from you.
Please. Well, what I was going to say is, having been to Northern Ireland last year, January, everybody will tell you, hey, the shootings are still happening. Just nobody's going to report on it because it's not, when the government controls the media, i.e. the BBC, you're never going to ever hear about it. But it's still happening. So, but this is speaking of cognitive dissonance. Check this out. It says, adding to the personal dimension, he's had 2 assassination attempts on his life. The leader's plans he being the new Syrian president, he wants to join forces with the U.S.-led coalition to fight the militant groups that he has long battled. What are you talking about? This guy joined Al-Qaeda in 2003 and has been killing Americans until he put on a freaking suit and tie. Now he's been battling these militants. He was one of the freaking militants. What are you talking about? And this is taken from Reuters.
Yeah, it's like saying I was in the 13th Street set of the Crips, and I've been battling the Crips my whole life. Well, I've been battling the Main Street Crips. I've been battling these gangs my entire life. Yeah, you're shooting at the Bloods. Settle down.
Will Parker says a well-dressed terrorist. Yeah. Dr. Gordon Watson says, yeah, Obama won the Peace Prize too. And you think Trump will get one who's actually done more than most American presidents combined? Nope.
Yeah, you go back and you read how Obama got that Nobel Prize, and it's really hysterical, the sort of the gyrations that the committee went through to give it to him, because he got it. It was awarded to him 9 months after he took office.
He was
nominated before he took office. And so he's got one. Al Gore's got one. It's really starting to become a sort of a democratic rite of passage.
They just gave it to the female who was going against Maduro down in Venezuela. And pardon me, I don't remember her name, but she was the latest recipient. And I'm like, he's still there. What are we doing here? Let's see. Guile says, a few years back, my old place in Manila, it's a business area. Muslim merchants squatted in our business area. They didn't want to leave when my brother, God rest his soul, asked them to leave. They threatened to kill my brother. So I went there armed and told them to go or blood will flow. Good thing I had backup. They left and never saw them again. And again, it's like the violence or the threat of violence is sometimes the only way these things get resolved.
It's never the answer, but sometimes it's the only solution.
It's true. And I think this is not the last one. Did you see this gentleman's speech on television?
No, I did not.
Oh my God. I would encourage everybody to watch it. It will absolutely break your freaking heart. Alec Penstone was on Good Morning Britain, and it was just a fluff piece, invite the old 100-year-old guy on who fought in World War II. And hey, buddy, how you doing? And he just immediately went on and says, the question they asked him was something like, was it worth it? All the bloodshed. He's like, no, it wasn't worth it. And they were like,
Wait, what?
What? He's like, no, it wasn't worth my friends' lives. We're less free than when I was a kid. We fought for our freedom and we've lost it. And I mean, it will rip your heart out to hear this. And
put the link to it in the show notes, will you?
Yeah, definitely. You can Alec Penstone's comments on Good Morning Britain. I mean, it will rip your freaking heart out because they immediately kind of like, who's interviewing? There's a white woman and a person of Indian or Pakistani descent, a gentleman of Indian Pakistan. Those are the two, and they immediately kind of lean into, no,
you're off script. You're off script.
Yeah, I'm getting the benefits of what you and your friends gave your life for and your youth for. And he's like, yeah, but we've lost it. You're not hearing me. I don't give a shit that you're here. Color doesn't mean anything to me. What I'm talking about is we've lost our freedoms. And when they're gone, they're gone. Man, I tell you, it was tough. It was tough to watch.
A tough interview. I'll have to watch that.
And it reminds me of, as we slide into the abyss and some of these places do. I mean, I can only imagine, if my mother's brother who, gave his life at 18 years old in Vietnam, had he been a Virginian or someone from Dearborn, Michigan, ask Danny, hey, was it worth dying at 18 and never having a family, never having children, giving everything you were ever going to have for the Muslim call to prayer to be in your town 5 times a freaking day? I can only guess what his reply may or may not have been. So this is not the country that was founded on, and everybody's welcome to come here as long as you assimilate and become part of our culture. I'm not asking you to come here and renounce Allah and become a Christian. Not asking you to do that. I'm asking you that if you're coming here, we have a set of laws. We are a constitutional republic. If that excites you and you're excited about those freedoms, that's fantastic. If you're going to use your majority, because let's be honest with everybody, native born Americans are not replacing the demographics to the tune that they need to be. So therefore, if a Muslim comes in here and they have maybe more than one wife on paper and some other women in the house, and they're all giving birth, and their numbers are going to outpace ours. I mean, it's not racist to say that's demographics. Whether you like it or not, demographics have huge sways. And we already talked about the tyranny of the majority. And with that, I'll shut up. Dr. Fuller, what are your thoughts?
I'd come back to what you had to say. Look, you want to come here and add to the Gestalt? Love to have you.
Love to have you.
Just treat others with the same respect you demand, right? You demand that I respect these things about you. Okay. Then show me the same respect. And I feel that same thing about any of the DEI stuff that, you're going to club me over the head and force me to do this thing and that thing and this thing that you want, that's important to you. I have to use your pronouns. I have to do this, I have to do that. And you do this, and the whole conversation centers around what you demand, but we completely ignore the victim. We ignore the other side of that conversation. Mm-hmm. And, if it happens to be built up mostly of white men, then I guess it makes it okay that you beat them up. But look, you want to come here and you want to be a Hajj, and you want to fly to Mecca and do your thing, and you want to pray 5 times a day, more power to you.
Absolutely.
And as an FBI agent, if somebody tried to burn your mosque, I'd go find them and throw them in federal prison. No problem.
100%.
Happy to do it. But at the same time, that doesn't mean you get to denigrate me and my belief system, or Rich Brown and his belief system. Your rights end where my nose begins.
Yes, sir.
And as long as we're willing to do that, we can make a society that we can all get along in. I am very concerned that that's not what we're getting here. I'm very concerned that they're taking advantage of people who are too good-natured and kind to tell them, sorry, pal, pound sand, get out of here. We're not putting up with that crap. And I also worry that at some point, you can only stretch a rubber band so far before it snaps, right?
Mm-hmm.
When that particular rubber band snaps, I don't think it's going to be pleasant. When you push people that are kind and good natured in this country to a point where they snap, traditionally that has gone very, very poorly. And I don't want us to be in that boat. I don't want us to be in a religious war. I don't want us to be in a civil war of any kind. And I have deepening concerns that that's the route we're headed down. And the people that should be most aware of that and should be guiding this ship off of that particular course are not.
Right.
They're standing up there and saying, I am a Somali first. I'm here in Congress and I'm going to represent the interests of Somalis and Somalians and the country of Somalia, or Palestine, or Timbuktu. I don't really care. You should be up there first and foremost concerned with America. And I worry that there are those in the halls of power that are not.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't go well.
No, I know. And I just want to echo, what you said. If there was a mosque in Crossville and peaceful Muslims wanted to go in there and exercise their thing, hey man, I'll help direct traffic. I got no problem with it. When Lisa and I go down and we donate to our local church's food pantry, like we did this past week, and took boxes of food, I'm not, hey, don't give it to the Muslims. I don't give a shit. I'm
hungry, right?
Yeah, again, part of the Red Cross, man. That was another thing, that female African-American FEMA director, not director, but some deputy, she's like, hey, if you see a Trump sign, don't give them any aid in a disaster. You're talking about insidious. Having been with the Red Cross, man, I'm there for everybody. But again, your rights, to your point, your rights and where my nose begins, buddy. You're not going to shove it down my throat. I absolutely am intolerant of that, because I'm going to respect your rights and you're going to respect my rights. And, you don't get to lecture me. I've been lectured enough in the military ever since Tailhook. Do you remember that?
Oh, God, do I remember Tailhook? Oh, yeah. Everybody paid for that one. I mean, everybody knows about how the naval aviators paid for it.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was brutal. So I think
but we all
Tailhook happened, those that don't oblige, I was out on ship at the time in 1992. And I mean, they shut the entire Navy down, like stop the ships, get everybody on the flight deck. And we're going to go through weeks of sensitivity training and diversity training and freaking how to conduct yourself around females. And I'm like, what happened? Yeah. Well, and they peeled the onion back. Some aviators got out of hand at a hotel in Vegas during their Tailhook convention, and the entire Department of Defense paid for it. And I mean, but my point is, punish the guilty, man, and everybody else gets. I believe in this thing called the corral theory. If you have your stallions that are out there running, let them run. They're doing their thing. They're making mission. They're doing the right things for the right reasons. Those that need additional training and education, and they've stepped outside, you bring them in the corral, you give them a little training and what have you, you send them back out. But to just bring every horse in and whip them all the same, it's like, I don't know.
That was the big thing in the Army. I know it's group punishment. And look, does it serve a purpose in that environment? Sure, it does. At least in the initial stages, team building, get everybody. But there's a time and a place. And look, everybody here who has kids, you don't punish your 18-year-old the same way you punish your 8-year-old.
Thank you.
You don't punish. I've got a 10 and a 7-year-old here in the house still, and they get disciplined similarly, but not the same. Mm-hmm. And that has to progress, and we need to do that as a society as well.
And you know what? That's an interesting point. Like, and to your point, I had one son who loved playing video games. So all you had to do is like, I'm going to take the cord from the wall to the video game, and I'm going to hold on to this cord until, your grades, whatever it was. Right. I can't pull that same lever with the other one who's 5 years junior to him. I need to do something else. Right. So this collective punishments, I don't know how we got off on that. I apologize, but yeah. I've kept you on here almost an hour and a half, Dr. Fuller. I know that you've got an out here in about 2 minutes. Any final comments before we close up today's discussion?
We are definitely living in interesting times. I think it really pays for all of us to stay plugged in. As much as I hate watching the news, so you kind of have to. I think it's a good idea because things are changing rapidly, and not for nothing, as we constantly say on this show, the fight is coming. Be ready.